Your training, you said that like right off the bat you were doing twice a week arm wrestling practices and also including max effort days in the gym. How did you
effort days? And but this is Team South Carolina, we would practice Wednesdays and Saturdays, and we would do basically GPP, general physical preparedness. So dragging sleds. We didn't have the actual Louis Simmons sled. We just had ropes tied to plates, and we would drag them back and forth across Chad Silvers' yard for hours. We'd do rope climbing for volume. I mean, it would be brutal. I mean, it would be an hour or two of arm wrestling, and then it would be another hour or two of just, hundreds of reps, either climbing a rope or dragging a sled or something like that. It was
brutal. How did you manage with the inflammation?
Well, back then, I was just taking painkillers, and when I first started there, I was beginning. So this was, my second year of arm wrestling with those guys. I would buy a 7-pound bag of ice and 12 beers because I was driving like 2 hours. And I would put that ice in the crook of my elbow while I held onto the steering wheel, and that ice would melt all over my lap. I would be soaking wet. My arms hurt so bad, and I'd be drinking beers and eating ibuprofen all the way home.
Okay, so you're not just a freak. You do deal with pain as well.
Yeah, it hurt. People would say Epsom salts would help, so I'd wrap a wet towel with Epsom salts and wrap the whole thing in saran wrap and try to sleep that way. My arms just hurt like constantly for years. I mean, it was at least 3 or 4 years that my arms are just constantly in pain. I couldn't. We went bowling once. I think I cried in front of everybody in the bowling alley. That ball went backwards, and I swear someone gave me an electric shock. The chickens got out. I was so pissed at these chickens getting out. I took a rock, threw it at the chicken, and I just went down to my knees. And that's how the fine chicken. You can stay loose. I don't care. I hope the dog feels good.
Yeah, I've had to give up throwing things, doing a lot of activities just to keep arm wrestling.
So I remember you saying, because the reason I started doing the JM presses was you had said that once you found those really healed up your elbows to the point where you didn't really get elbow pain anymore.
Not only healed them, and before I started telling people about them, I used them for about a year. So I didn't want to advocate something and then quit. Because I see a lot of people, they say, this is how I train. And you go, the two things come to mind. One, you don't pull that way. So I really don't think you train that way. And 8 months later, you got another training video out, and it looks nothing like the one I watched 8 months ago. So I really don't think you're telling me the truth.
Yeah.
But I learned about the JM presses by reading Louis' articles, not his book, but the individual articles. And I'll be honest, I had a hard time from his description figuring out what he did, what it actually was, until I actually saw somebody demonstrate it. Yeah. But every time Louis mentioned the JM presses, and he mentioned J.M. Blakely, who invented them, he talked about how they actually strengthened the tendons. And prior to that, I was using plyometrics to strengthen the tendons because getting that force on so quickly, my philosophy was it was so fast that the muscles couldn't react. So that force had to be carried by your bones and your tendons. But with the JM presses, it was a slow enough motion that you could actually put it into the tendons. And so for about a year, I screwed around with them, heavy days, light days, volume days. And once I was convinced they were working, that's when I started telling people about them. And if you do a volume day, it gets the blood flow in, helps the pain go away almost immediately, and you can keep the pain at bay. But when you start doing them heavy, and those tendons start getting stronger and stronger, then I noticed, you can get a little sloppy on your side pressure work in order to hit that PR without suffering, a day or two of the elbow pain.
Yeah.
So that's what I became a believer of it. And then I told every single person I could. Whenever people would ask me about the tendon pain, I say, well, you're not doing the JM presses.
Yeah.
And people would say, I'm doing the JM presses like you said, and my elbows hurt. And I go, you liar. You are not doing them like I said. Because if you were, you would not be hurting.
Yeah.
I used to buy ibuprofen in those giant bottles and bourbon. And I haven't taken ibuprofen or a painkiller for my arms in probably 10 years.
Wow.
Awesome.
You know? And now I still get, like when I pull with Dave Chafe, anybody who can rip me open in practice will still hurt my elbows.
Right.
But a few days later, I'm back to 100% again. You know, I still get the tendonitis or the golfer's elbow, but boy, the arms bounce back so quick.
So is Dave Chafee somebody that you think you have a good chance with in a super match format?
I don't. It's practice, so I don't know. I know where I'm weak with him.
Yeah,
and that's the beauty of having a training. I mean, I don't know what he gets out of practicing with me, but what I get out of practicing with him is I know exactly where my weak spots are.